By the time the sheriff found the hidden camera in my chicken coop, the HOA president was already screaming about jurisdiction. Deputy Flores held up the little black device between two gloved fingers, its red light still blinking. "So you're saying," he asked slowly, turning to the woman in the floral blazer, "this is part of your neighborhood security initiative?" Patricia Crandall, 50-something, aggressively highlighted hair, HOA president of Oak Hollow Estates, crossed her arms over a clipboard thick enough to stun a bear. "We have every right to protect our community," she snapped. "He's a risk. Just look at his structures." I stood there in my muddy boots and faded feed store hat, with a bewildered hen clucking at my feet, and said the line that started the whole mess. "Deputy, I don't live in her neighborhood. I'm not in their HOA. My property isn't even in the same zip code." Everyone went quiet except the rooster, who chose that moment to crow like he'd just delivered a punchline. "My name is Evan Cole, and I bought 10 acres on the edge of town specifically to avoid people like Patricia. My place sits on the county road just past the now entering Oak Hollow Estate sign, the kind of master plan subdivision where the grass is all the same length and the mailboxes look like they came off the same assembly line. My property, on the other hand, is what Patricia once described in an email as a visual affront to community values. I have a red pole barn that was old when my dad was young, a patchwork of raised garden beds, a small greenhouse made from reclaimed windows, chickens, 2 goats, and 1 retired border collie named Rusty, who sleeps on the porch like he's getting paid for it. I work remotely as a network engineer, keep to myself, and talk to people mostly at the feed store or when they ask if I sell eggs. My mortgage is paid to a bank, my taxes to the county, and my sold to absolutely no HOA. Oak Hollow Estates starts 3 parcels down. There's a clear boundary. Their fancy stone subdivision entry, then my dusty driveway with a mailbox that leans 10 degrees to the left. Legally, physically, spiritually, 2 different worlds. Enter Patricia Crandall, president of the Oak Hollow HOA, self-appointed defender of property values, and woman who once printed out my Zillow listing from 3 years ago and brought it to a county zoning meeting annotated like it was evidence in a murder trial. Her HOA bylaws explicitly say they govern properties within the platted boundaries of Oak Hollow Estates. That has never included my land. Didn't stop her from trying. It started small with notes. Not normal friendly notes. Notes like concerned neighbor notice, outdoor storage of agricultural implements may be in violation of community standards. Attached was a photocopy of a random Oak Hollow HOA rule about unsightly yard equipment, highlighted 6 times. Someone had walked up my driveway, wedged it in my screen door, and left without knocking. Next came the emails. I got my first one after I sold a couple dozen eggs to a nice couple from Oak Hollow who saw my fresh egg sign. From Patricia Crandall at oakhollowhoa.org. Subject: unauthorized commercial activity. Mr. Cole, it has come to our attention you are operating an unlicensed commercial enterprise, egg sales, visible to residents of Oak Hollow. This negatively impacts our property values and violates our HOA's no business policy. Cease immediately. Respectfully, Patricia A. Crandall, President, Oak Hollow HOA. I replied very politely that I am not a member of Oak Hollow HOA. My property is zoned agricultural, and she could file that email where the sun doesn't shine, in accordance with county filing regulations. That did not go over well. The next week, my fresh egg sign disappeared. In its place was a laminated notice of violation nailed to my fence post, stamped with the HOA logo like some kind of suburban papal bull. Rusty started growling at the tree line in the evenings. At first, I figured deer. Then one night I came out to take the trash and caught it, a faint whirring sound overhead. A drone, hovering over my barn. I watched it pivot, camera gimbal tilting down at my property like it was casing the joint. Then it zipped toward Oak Hollow, where I could see tiny silhouettes on their manicured walking trail. Next morning, another email. Mr. Cole, our HOA Security Committee has conducted aerial observation and identified multiple non-compliant structures and potential code violations on your property. You must furnish all building permits, business licenses, and animal permits within 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in enforcement actions. Signed, Patricia. Enforcement from whom, exactly? The HOA fairy. I ignored her. She escalated. 2 days later, I found a security patrol SUV with the Oak Hollow logo parked half on the county road, half blocking my driveway. A man in a polo with security embroidered on the chest was sitting inside, clearly on his phone, clearly pretending he wasn't photographing my barn. "Can I help you?" I asked, leaning down to his open window. He didn't look at me. "Just doing a security check, sir." "This is private property," I said, "and not your HOA's property." "We're monitoring threats to the community," he replied. "We've had reports of suspicious activity. Livestock, traffic, unregistered business." Behind me, a goat bleated like it was agreeing. That night, Patricia's HOA security newsletter went out. One of the Oak Hollow residents forwarded it to me. Alert: adjacent property concerns. We have observed unpermitted structures, commercial operations, and possible animal hoarding at the farm bordering our subdivision. For your safety, do not engage. Our security team and legal counsel are addressing this threat. A threat. I was a threat now. That's when I started documenting everything. The line got crossed when Patricia decided to play law. It was a Saturday morning when 2 county code enforcement guys showed up. Not unusual. I've dealt with them before when I built the greenhouse. Except this time, they looked irritated. Mr. Cole once said, "We got multiple complaints from Oak Hollow HOA about unpermitted construction and unsafe livestock conditions. They sent, a packet." He handed me a binder. Not a folder. A binder. Tabs and everything. Inside were full-color photos of my property from various angles, printouts of my social media, screenshots of my Craigslist egg listing, and several pages labeled evidence of criminal activity. Among the evidence was a zoomed-in photo of my rainwater collection barrel, a blurry shot of me carrying a sack of feed, and a picture of Rusty barking at the drone, captioned "aggressive animal." At the back was a letter on HOA letterhead, addressed to the county, claiming I was running an unlicensed poultry processing facility. My structures were within Oak Hollow jurisdiction, and I was known to be hostile and armed. "For the record," I said, "I process nothing but scrambled eggs. My barn predates Oak Hollow, and the most dangerous thing I own is a hoe." The code guy rubbed his temples. "We have to check permits because they made it sound extreme. But they also sent us aerial photos." "Aerial as in drone?" I asked. He nodded. "And that's why the sheriff's office is looped in. It's been reported as potential illegal surveillance. They were flying over other residents too to check for non-compliant patios." Apparently, Patricia's security program wasn't just me. She'd hired a private security consultant, translation, some guy with a drone license and a lifted truck, to fly over every yard backing up to open land, logging their violations. Some Oak Hollow residents complained. One called the county. Another called the sheriff. When Sheriff Daniels himself rolled up my driveway a few days later with Deputy Flores, I thought I was in trouble. Instead, they asked if I'd be willing to show them where I'd seen the drone, the security patrol car, and any weird cameras. Rusty led the tour like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. We found the first camera on a fence post facing my barn, disguised as a birdhouse with a little hole drilled in the front. Flores spotted the second one in a tree overlooking my back pasture. Both were Wi-Fi cameras, both pointed inward, neither on a property line. "Who owns that strip of woods?" the sheriff asked, pointing toward the tiny slice of land between my pasture and the Oak Hollow walking trail. "According to the plat maps," I said. "The HOA. They bought it as a natural buffer." He nodded slowly. "Then they just turned their natural buffer into an illegal surveillance platform. And they're using drone footage with private home shots to pressure the county." He clicked his tongue. "That's a problem." That afternoon, the sheriff's office requested all footage and documentation related to Oak Hollow security operations. Patricia, in a move of breathtaking stupidity, handed it all over like she was being helpful. She'd labeled folders things like surveillance, farm threat, aerial recon, non-compliant yards, and evidence for forcing compliance. The sheriff called me that evening. "Mr. Cole," he said, "how do you feel about filing a harassment report? Also, you might want to talk to a lawyer. You've got grounds for more than that." Turns out, the phrase "you surveilled non-members and lied to county officials" plays really poorly with both law enforcement and the county attorney. While Patricia still thought she was building her case against me, the case quietly shifted toward her. The county attorney's office confirmed the HOA had no legal authority over my property, their letters to the county misrepresented my land as being under their jurisdiction, and the drone flights had captured images of people in their backyards, including kids in pools, which is not great legally. The sheriff's office discovered that the security consultant Patricia hired didn't actually have a valid license in the state. His background check included a few red flags, like a stalking complaint, and an improper use of surveillance equipment charge that was plea bargained away in another county. My lawyer, recommended by one of the Oak Hollow residents Patricia had previously fined for having a pink flamingo in their yard, nearly squeaked when I dropped the binder on her desk. "You have documentation?" she asked. "Time-stamped photos? Copies of emails? Witnesses?" I nodded. "And camera footage?" Because after I saw that first drone, I installed my own trail cams facing the tree line. They'd recorded the security SUV parking on my driveway repeatedly, Patricia and 2 board members trudging through the buffer strip in the dark adjusting their spy birdhouse, and the drone operator launching from HOA common property, flying repeatedly over my land. My lawyer smiled a small, unsettling smile. Meanwhile, inside Oak Hollow, the residents were getting twitchy. Someone leaked the fact that security had been watching their yards too. Patricia tried to spin it as proactive safety monitoring, but it's hard to sound reassuring when people are circulating screenshots of their kids' birthday parties clearly visible in surveillance folders labeled evidence. A faction of residents formed an anti-board group chat. I know this because one of them, the egg buyer, was gleefully sending me screenshots. Patricia called an emergency HOA meeting in the clubhouse to address misinformation. She expected applause. She got Sheriff Daniels walking in halfway through, flanked by 2 deputies. "We're here to discuss your security program," he said. "And we'd like to talk about why you've been surveilling properties outside your jurisdiction without their consent." Oak Hollow, for the first time in its manicured life, went completely silent. The power balance flipped in one sentence. "For the record," the sheriff continued, "Mr. Cole has committed no violations, is not subject to your HOA rules, and is now the complainant in an active investigation." The climax came 2 weeks later at the county board hearing. Patricia showed up in a navy blazer, clutching her giant HOA rules binder like a comfort animal. I showed up in clean jeans, my lawyer, and a USB drive labeled Exhibit A, Spy Farm. The hearing was supposed to be about nuisance complaints regarding the Cole property. Patricia had filed so many that the county finally scheduled formal time. Instead, it turned into a public autopsy of Oak Hollow's power trip. The county attorney laid it out. False and misleading complaints. Patricia's letters repeatedly claimed my property was subject to HOA enforcement. The county plat maps clearly showed otherwise. Unlawful surveillance. Drone footage capturing my entire property, including inside my open barn doors. Fixed cameras positioned on HOA land, aimed at my windows and livestock pens. Security logs where Patricia and the consultant rated my property as high-risk farm with comments like owner refuses to acknowledge HOA authority. Harassment and interference with quiet enjoyment of property. Repeatedly blocking my driveway. Trespassing onto the buffer strip to install cameras. Mailing violation notices demanding I paint my barn earth tones consistent with community palette. When the board chair asked Patricia if she had anything to say in her defense, she launched into a speech. "This man's farm is an eyesore," she said, voice rising. "He sells eggs out of a cooler. There are chickens everywhere. It smells like agriculture. Our residents paid for a standard of living. They did not consent to a farm ruining their view." "Ma'am," interrupted the board chair, "your HOA does not extend beyond your subdivision. But our property values are not a legal basis to spy on your neighbors." My lawyer took over. She played clips from my trail cams on the projector. Patricia at 11:42 p.m., in yoga pants and a headlamp, fiddling with the birdhouse cam. The security guy flying the drone directly over my roof. The security patrol SUV half blocking my driveway, the driver zooming in on my front porch with a camera. My lawyer then had me read one of Patricia's emails out loud, the one where she wrote, "If we can collect enough evidence on him, we might be able to force a compliance agreement or get the county to condemn his structures. Once he's under pressure, Maybe he'll sell and we can encourage a developer to buy it and annex the land into Oak Hollow." That got an audible gasp from the audience. A couple of Oak Hollow residents turned to glare at her. One woman actually whispered, "You tried to do what?" The county attorney recommended a formal reprimand of the Oak Hollow HOA, fines for illegal surveillance and misuse of county resources, referral to the state attorney general's office for deceptive practices, and a restraining order protecting me and my property from further harassment. The board voted unanimously. Patricia's face went the color of an overripe tomato. But the real punchline came a month later when the state attorney general's office finished its own review. They determined that Oak Hollow's security program violated state privacy laws and that Patricia, as president, had personally authorized and overseen it. The HOA's insurance carrier took one look at the situation and basically yeeted itself into the sun, dropping coverage and citing undisclosed surveillance activities. Suddenly, Oak Hollow wasn't just dealing with fines. They were staring down a class action lawsuit from residents over the spying, my civil suit for harassment, invasion of privacy, and emotional distress, and a massive legal bill. The HOA board did the only thing they know how to do. They held a vote. This time, the question wasn't should we approve Patricia's security budget? It was should we remove Patricia from the board and bar her from holding any HOA office ever again? Patricia lost that vote 87-3. The three in her favor were her husband, her best friend, and a guy who apparently hadn't been paying attention and thought the question was about approving new pool chairs. She was removed as president, banned from serving on the board, and listed in the HOA minutes as having engaged in activities detrimental to the association's legal and ethical standards. My lawsuit settled out of court. They paid me enough to re-roof the barn, build a nicer chicken coop than most Oakland apartments, and put in a proper farm stand with a little covered porch, fridge, and a hand-painted sign. Farm fresh eggs, not HOA compliant since 2023. As part of the settlement and restraining order, Patricia is prohibited from coming within 300 feet of my property line. She is barred from conducting or authorizing any security activities involving adjacent properties. The HOA had to send a letter, on the same letterhead they used to harass me, to the entire subdivision and surrounding properties, explicitly stating they have no authority over non-member land. The best part? The county made them take down the big, self-important security patrol signs at the subdivision entrance and replace them, pending further review, with something more accurate. Last I drove by, the temporary sign read Oak Hollow Estates, a surveillance-free community by court order. Patricia moved her bedroom to the back of her house because, as one neighbor gleefully told me while buying eggs, she can't stand that when she looks out her front window, all she sees is your barn and that smug little farm stand.